But I always walk in a room and go, I'm not the smartest, right? But I look around that room and I go, but I can at least be as good as you. So even the top guy in the room, I go, I can at least do as good as you. I really believe that in myself, no matter what scene it is, no matter what industry it is, no matter what challenge it is. I'm like, well, if it, it's humanly possible, yeah? If you can see a person in that room that's done that, surely I can do that. I'm good enough to do that. And what I lack in skill, I make up in effort, 100%.
Work ethic. Yeah.
Work ethic, you know what I mean? I've been there. I'll bring something else to the table that they maybe don't have, or more so, not, even if we've got all the same tools and we've got all the same stuff, I'm going to draw inspiration from a different place.
Hey, it's Julian, the founder and CEO of Loan Options, and I'm back today for another episode of Lost and Founders, and I'm here with a very special guest.
Tim Caruana.
Mate, absolute pleasure to have you. I'm so excited to unpack your story because obviously Courtney introduced us and he's an absolute legend. But yeah, I just want to unpack it step by step because you're obviously a very successful business owner across multiple different verticals but you've got a very interesting story. And I guess I'd love to start at the very beginning. Like, how did you know that you wanted to be a business owner? What were the steps that happened? Like, what happened in your schooling life? Like, what's led you to this point? Because you've had, some would say, quite an unusual, unorthodox story, but you've got some absolute gems to share with us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me, Julian, to start off with. I suppose if we go back to school, I grew up in southwest Sydney, so in Campbelltown. I went to public school, I suppose, just like a lot of people, I suppose, in that area. I never grew up in housing commission, but I grew up in the fringe of that. So I would say lower society, sort of like week to week living.
Yeah.
My family private rented, but we probably a bit of I'd say underprivileged life in a way, even though I sort of felt like I had everything, could still get those new shoes and bits and pieces.
My parents always found a way, right?
Yeah, they just found a way, week to week. They found a way. I did, I suppose, even back then when I think about it, I got a hunger for money, maybe I'm hungry for money. And it made me want to be driven and leave school early. So second week of year 9, I left school. So I was roughly about, I was either just 14 or 13. So I think it was quite different back then. I think now I know with my elder sons now, you got to be 17 and it's quite regulated. But back then it was sort of like, if you didn't really want to be there, they just pretty much let you leave. That was at Ambervale High. So I was an early school leaver. But even to go back, one bit I did miss is I knew that there was something, whether I say it's something special, I don't even want to maybe label it something special because I definitely don't want to come across cocky or arrogant in that way. But my first sort of shine was I knew I was definitely a people person.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest indication of that is during my primary school, I actually moved schools 3 times. So as my parents moved in areas, we'd move schools. So even though I moved, say, I remember one time I moved from East Campbelltown to St. Helens Park. We're talking about maybe a 10-minute drive in traffic. We still moved schools to make things a bit easier to walk to school. I always used to walk to school. So I remember when I moved to St. Helens Park, I moved there in year 6. And election back then, or I don't know if with that school because it was a newer school, they allowed school captain electing a school captain around, I think it was week 6. So picture this, I've come to the school week 6 and actually got elected school captain.
Yeah, wow.
Right? So that's just, I sort of hold that close to my heart as I get older because I understand even seeing my kids go through primary school and even through high school. I can see that, that it is really a people, people role or people voting role, even more so back in those days, I believe. We're talking, I'm 41 this year. So that's a good, what's that roughly? I would have been maybe 12. Does that sound about right? 12 or 11 in year 6?
Yeah, but that sounds about right, yeah.
So we're talking 30 years ago, which sounds like quite a while away, right? And Yeah, but I think that was sort of a real defining moment, real step up moment to sort of go, there are words that come into my head, probably negative words, whether, you think of stuff like manipulation. I wouldn't think it's that, but I found I could really mold and really, not so much work a crowd, but work people. But another thing too, once again, with no arrogance is, it was probably a really shine to show me that people were attracted to me as a person. Um, and, whether that means, I'm you hear those things like natural leader.
Yeah.
I've always been that guy, when you're in the crowd with the friends, and you meet a group of people for the first time, they might forget a few people's names, but they always remember Tim, whether it's because I'm loud, whether it's, the larrikin side of me or entertainment side, the conversation side, like I love to chat. So that was the real highlight sort of in year 6. Then going into high school, like I said, I only made it to that like second week of year 9, and it was a drive for money. It really was a drive for money, and that's where it started. Basically, the best way I could describe that stage of my life is just imagine just jumping from one thing to the next. If you, within reason, there's probably, you could rattle off something sort of random, and I'd be like, yeah, well, I didn't do that, but I done this, and that's sort of like that.
Yeah.
So I've done all the jobs. I forget that saying where they say like, what's it? Master of none.
Yeah, jack
of all trades. Yeah, master of none. Definitely not a jack of any trade when it comes to that sort of stuff, because I wasn't around long enough.
But look, when you're that young, I think about myself when I was 14 years old. I was a little shit, you know what I mean? It was just like I was a good kid. I wasn't a troublemaker or anything, but like you're still a baby. Like when you're 14 years old, you have no idea how the world works. You're still trying to figure things out. You're wondering why you were born into, a certain life with, and you have some friends or whatever that, have the big 2-story house and the fancy cars and they got dressed head to toe in nice clothes, and like you're just, you know what I mean? Like when you're that age, you're still trying to figure out what life is. So I don't think anybody can look at a 14-year-old that's jumping between jobs and just trying to figure out how to make a living for themselves or help their family. Nobody should be judging a 14-year-old for trying to figure stuff out, mate. So if anything, that's probably shaped you that sort of entrepreneurial spirit in yourself.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, so learning a little bit about how these businesses operate and what moves the needle for them and all those kinds of things. But yeah, so how did you go from there? You're jumping between, like, where did you find that you actually, I've got a passion for this or that? Or
yeah, it's a good question. So in between like this jumping around bits and pieces, like I sort of mentioned before when we first spoke, growing up in Campbelltown, I was always on the fringe of it. So I was always like, when I say the fringe of it, I just sort of keep it that basic to not go into it, because it's definitely not a part of who I am. But, about, let's just say, creative ways you can make money. And I always knew that wasn't for me, but I was always on the fringe of it, always around it, always seen it, always dabbled a little bit in it. And, that led another thing too, like to not, go into too many, like, or lift too many layers, but also be a bit vulnerable when I say this. It also structured like a man I created, because if we go even a little bit further back, I had that at that time when I'm just about to leave school, my parents separate. I also find out some news that my father's not my biological father. So I have a real, sort of like a twist and a turn. So this guy that's raised me, he's been in my life for 6 months. It's like I get, this sort of sudden, he's not your father, because, that my parents are breaking up and I'm choosing to go to him, and they want to, my mum wants to break the news that, well, that's not really your father. And if you go there, legal implications and stuff like that. So I start to build a man, what I believe, because at that age, I think, and I notice even now with my sons, around there is sort of where I know maybe the foundation, in my opinion, of maybe morally where you're shaped, but I think you still, even I know for myself, I was quite, whether the word's vulnerable or still malleable, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm trying to use too many big words here, but malleable. I could have gone either way. So I try to navigate that for myself. I had a real defining moment, and I won't get into like the specifics of it, because I don't think it would be fair that maybe even some people that would hear this are involved. But I had a defining moment in my friendship group, where a life was nearly lost. I put it that way, and it split the friendship group. But in that moment, in all that madness, I also was introduced to my wife, which, you know, in November this year, we've been together for 20 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, we got 5 children, so 3 boys and 2 girls. Our oldest son's 18,
Bless, yeah.
and then it goes to 17 in July this year, and then a daughter that's 14, a daughter 10 in December, and the young guy was just 7. So I had a defining moment there. I just met my wife, and which leads me into the change. So I was driving forklifts back then, and I was like, well, I want this life. I want this new life. And the new life looked like, you know, I'm from a Maltese background, and we were pretty loose. Like I said, with my parents divorcing, my grandparents, you know, God rest their souls, they were like a big anchor in who I was morally. So when I met my wife, you know, from a Greek background, her parents migrated to Australia, so real ethnic background, you know, morals, respect, manners, you know, that was my mother, family, right? I was so drawn to that, because even for myself, when I sort of really think about it and even unwrap it just sitting here in front of you, is I definitely don't want to portray like a poor me. Like I had it there, but I didn't have it in spades. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I had it when I went to my grandparents' house. You know, I lived with them for quite some time. I did have it in my home when my parents were together. I did have it in moments alone with my father, in moments with my mother. So I'm not sort of sitting here going, you know, broken household, poor me. I made my choices along the way. But when I hit that crossroad and I had this break in the friendship group, and then I had this, you know, this light, like the love of my life, my true love, like my future, you know, that's the way I looked at my wife, Penny, back then. Even, you know, this is trying to, you know, poison myself when I say this, or keep myself, you know, not get too emotional with it. But I've never even said this to her, but, you know, even like back then, it seemed like a, you know, like an unreachable mountain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, and that's what drives me too. You know, I think one thing that drives me in business is still that, you know, the climb, you know, and that's why I lean it, like a sort of use that as an example. Even with my wife, even at that stage, it was like, you know, could I achieve this in a way? I know, like, and that's not to move away from true love. It's definitely true love. But it was also a thing that I sort of even asked myself back then when I think back all these years ago.
You ask yourself, are you worthy of this person?
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't come across the wrong way. And I think like you showing your vulnerability, a lot of people that haven't done a lot of podcasts and they get asked a question like, how did you end up here? A lot of the time we don't, as business owners, actually think about what are the things that happened in my life that made me into the person I am today. And then you look at these things that were really pivotal points in your life, but in anybody's life they would be nearly losing a friend, your parents go through a divorce, you're getting pulled from pillar to post, you're not sure what way is up, you leave school, you're just bouncing between jobs. Like all of these things actually ended up placing you, the universe or God, or, you know, whatever your I know we're going to talk a little bit about faith and religion, but whatever way you're inclined, that led you to this moment where you're now here actually unpacking this in real time and thinking about what are all the things that made you who you are. And there's going to be other business owners that listen to this, maybe resonate with the early part of your story, or maybe they resonate more with sort of some of the troubles that you've had in, you know, later on in life. But, you know, I think when you actually boil it down, you being vulnerable is not a bad thing, mate. It is like, obviously it's men's mental health month. So there's nothing wrong with you telling your story and getting a bit emotional. And I can tell that you love your wife and your family really, really much. The first conversation we had, I could tell that family, and, you know, this was a big part of your story. And and you finding your faith and stuff. So, yeah, don't feel bad about sharing any of this. If you need to take a moment or whatever, I think, mate, that's totally normal. So
No, I appreciate you saying that, but I think it's good. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. No, definitely. Yeah, I'm in the moment, and yeah, that for me, meeting my wife and taking up what I believe to be a challenge. A challenge to not so much like, I can't say like reinvent myself, right? Because we meet when we're 19, but I'm driving actually, I don't even think I was employed at that stage. I don't even think when we first met I was employed. I was, like I said, on that fringe of, let's call it unemployment, but I wasn't on the dole, without talking in too many riddles. And I used to spend most times just on a dirt bike, just with my mates, during the day, just riding dirt bikes, not really going nowhere fast, but not really that concept of going anywhere wasn't a thought, if that makes sense. I meet my wife, like I said, I've got this challenge and I'm like, well, I want this life. I want, maybe even the inner side of myself goes, I want the life that, for myself that I didn't have, if that makes sense, And the other side of that too is, a lot of ethnic mates too. And I seen, their home upbringing, and I always knew that was, I don't want to make it sound like, I'm Australian, right? My wife's Australian. We're born here. But I think there's definitely something like with that European culture, like, I live by it now. It's like, like family first, and, other things too, like that. I always think to myself, like, and I ask myself every day, and I tell myself every day like that, yeah, I'll be happy. Like, I'll give my life for my family. But before that, I live my life for my family. That's so much important for me, because I know for me, like, I know from when I was born, the hourglass has been tipped upside down, and I don't know how much sand's at the top. I really don't. But I'm also not worried about that either, where I am in life. And we will talk obviously about faith, but where I'm in life, I never think about, even though I've given that metaphor, I don't think about the hourglass anymore, but I wake up every day knowing I do it for my family. And I'll go back, because I can jump back and forward, obviously, I talk a lot, but back to that forklift. And I was with CSR back then. And it was at Wetherill Park. And I wanted that life, like I said. So to have that life, we're talking, I had the 300 guests, or 300, or maybe it was 400. I don't want to exaggerate and get into the particular, but I had the big wedding, the 70, 80 grand, and you think about that 20 years ago in November, 19th to 11th, 2005. And as I say that, I can rub the inside of my ring and still feel the date that's there. So I know, I sort of, can always look at it as a reminder and always remember the date. Had the honeymoon, had the first kid at 23, and I'm in the forklift still at that stage. I'm doing 16-hour days, 6 days a week.
Oh, wow.
Before we get married, we buy the unit so we can move out, get married, move out. We had the unit probably, I think, about 2 months. So I still remember that time too, where Friday nights, like my wife, very traditional upbringing, couldn't sleep out anywhere. So, we'd be up at the unit from, when she finished work, and I'd drop her back home, before midnight or before 11, whatever the curfew was, but we'd stay in the unit, and we were excited to have the wedding day, and then, we go on to live our life. Like I said, first kid, 23, everything was pretty much, like when I say pretty much planned, I remember my wife sort of going, well, when do you think we'll have kids? And I was like, well, I don't know. How about now? And we've been blessed, we tried for a kid, and we've never struggled in that. My wife comes from quite a fertile family. She's one of 4 girls. Her sister just above her is engaged, but never got never had kids, right? But then her 2 older sisters had 4 each. My nieces and nephews, and then we've had 5, right? So I think, like, even when I tell people 5 and stuff like that, it's got nothing to do with the ethnicity or the background. I think that's also a bit of a scenario. If I don't do things in halves, if I'm gonna do it,
You want a whole squad.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it all. My wife even wants to go for number 6,
Yeah, wow.
And I keep saying, look, we're blessed, we're happy, and I got my young guy, Raphael, little guy. He's, I always joke around with people.
He's a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I always joke around with people and go, you know, if they got each kid in a room, and I know this sounds pretty maybe morbid or pretty full on when I say this, but they said, look, mum or dad, only one of them can, you know, come out of the other room. First 4 go in, I'm gone. But if by chance the little guy goes in, my wife's gone. So so I'd be banking on that, or really banking on none of us in that scenario, obviously. But yeah, I push hard in that forklift. I get us into the unit. And I actually remember, like I can remember it like yesterday, that there was this like a voice inside of me. And once again, I don't want to come across arrogant, or I don't want to come across like, you know, an a-hole, any of that sort of stuff, and even talk in a way that I'm above or beneath. You know, I believe like everyone's equal.
Yeah.
But I just knew that wasn't the right spot for me.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't fulfilled. You know, I did have fulfillment. Believe me, like, you know, doing those 16-hour days and coming home and people seeing me and people going, look, you know, I worked in Wetherill Park, I live in Campbelltown. By the time you get in the car, by the time you drive, by the time you go back, you know, 8 hours in between shifts to try and wind down, eat, have a shower, I was sleeping 4 hours a day. You know, I become like a machine 6 days a week. And the 7th day, I would just sleep to catch up, to go again. And I was proud of that. You know, I was proud when people were like, oh, you're killing yourself. And I was like, mate, this won't kill me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm the killer. You know, I can 16 hours. Like, I'm the guy that, you know, can squeeze 25 hours out of 24-hour day. You know, that was my mentality. You know what I mean? It was always hearing those things is what even like drove me more, you know, to be like, you know, there's no quit. But then I had this opportunity to go to Coles, right? And to work, you know, pick packing in the warehouse, the forklift. It was just closer to home. It was going to be something different. So I remember back then, and you know, where are we now? We're probably like, what am I? Maybe like 24, 25. And it's like it's probably like so much more advanced now, but I remember it was going to be like you had to put a headset on, and the headset would tell you the location to go pick items and stuff. And it was a real new thing. So I was one of like the trial, you know, people like tech guys that were going to, you know, go to, I can't even remember, I'm probably doing it no justice, but, you know, L10, get, you know, 2 items. And when you done it, you just click the button and it'll tell you the next one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it would basically help you pick in the most economical way, so there was less time and all that. And then I still remember, you still come up to the window and you'd hand your docket and you'd have, you know, the 4 pallets, or even if it was, you know, or you only have 2 pallets on, but if it was a 6 pallet order, you would also mark where you've put the other 4 pallets, so no locations and all stuff like that. But I just knew, I just had this moment. I was like, mate, like there's got to be more. Like there's got to be more for me. Like this is not fulfilling. And one thing, to sort of jump back a little bit, I'd already started playing around with eBay.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I'd already started playing around with eBay. So I'd already created I know I'm jumping back and forward now, but I missed this bit out. I'd already had an eBay store. So I'm just trying to think timeline. We're in 2005 now. And I know that for a couple of reasons. I'm a mad UFC fan.
Yeah.
So Ultimate Fighter 2005. I watched that live. And what I mean by live is, if they had the fight on I can't even remember the days. I'd be lying if I said the days, but let's just call it their Saturday. And maybe it wasn't Saturday, but I'd watch it on the Sunday. It was like through some sort of, I don't know, it's probably some illegal streaming or something that I paid for, but it wasn't Foxtel, it wasn't something like that. But I remember I used to download it. I can't even remember the app or the website, and I'm not even really that technical, so I don't want to try and sound technical. But I remember I'd watch it, and I also found a love for poker back then, Texas Hold'em. So that's the year Joe Hashem won the World Series, right? Yeah. So I had these like 2 extreme things, and I'm like, you know, and as crazy as it sounds, once again, you know, that's the, you know, it's not bipolar, but the entrepreneur thing side of me going, I don't know, maybe I can be a professional poker player. Maybe I can be a professional MMA fighter, right? And I start jiu-jitsu. I know we talked about that offline, about the jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But I molded those little ideas in this online space when I come across eBay, and I went for eBay, right? And I created, it was called the MMA store back then. And basically what I did is what would be called drop shipping today, I imagine. I basically had a drop shipping model, But because my two suppliers were based in like the Wollongong sort of area, they were MMA wholesalers. I used to collect my orders on the weekend, so to speak, on eBay, like sell. I drive down Monday, buy the stock, drive it back home to Campbelltown, pack it and send it. So I used to do the shipping, which I suppose sort of rules out a little bit of the drop shipping, I suppose, category.
Yeah.
But I never owned stock before I sold it. You know, and then I'd
Yeah,
go back
okay.
down. If I had a real busy week, I'd go back down on Thursday. I'd be back on Monday. So that was like ticking over. And it gets to me to this moment. I'm in Coles now to go back to there. Fast forward back where I was talking about. I'm in Coles and I jump onto Seek, yeah? And I'm trying to type all this stuff in like...
Just before you move on, I want to... there's a good chance that I bought something from your store. Did you used to sell like Silver Star...
Yeah, shirts.
Yeah, the shirts. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is actually a 100% chance that I bought clothes. I used to buy all the Silver Star gear, the GSP, Anderson Silver,
Machida. You love remember you had the silver and the orange one, the dragon.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that was me.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you said the MMA store, I'm like, obviously that's a fairly generic name, but I would remember it because there was only a handful of places you could buy that kit from.
Yep.
And that's insane, man.
So I had the eBay store,
and
then later the one at Wetherill Park opened up.
I went to that store. Yeah.
So that's not me.
Separate. Okay, yeah. I went to that one when it eventually did open, but I don't think I actually bought anything from there.
But I'll say I'm the original, maybe. But yeah, you're spot on. Silver. Oh man, I was big on Silver Star, and the material was fantastic. Maybe the cut was a bit long, I reckon, but you're talking about those days. Like I still remember going to 209 in Campbelltown, the Silver Star shirt, or getting out to the city in a Silver Star shirt. Yeah. They were showstoppers, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to remember too. There was obviously Tap Out, but I used to sell a little bit of that.
I never really liked Tap Out though. I feel like the Silver Star. There was another brand as well.
I know what you're thinking about.
Affliction
was really good. Randy Couture made that really super famous, and that was some expensive stuff, man. Jackets and jeans. Yeah. The shirts were pretty cheap, the walkouts. And there was another really good one too. I'm trying to think of the name now too. And I feel like, who made it famous? What did I just... Sometimes I can have the tip of the name on my tongue. Robbie Lawler. I think Robbie Lawler had something to do with it. I'm trying to think of another... If you rattle off...
Yeah.
Can you think of another brand? I've got it in my head. I just can't see it.
Yeah, it's in my mind.
We'll get back to it. Yeah. But I had all those shirts. And it's interesting we bring that up because I don't want to jump different tangents, but just I reconnected with a mate of mine recently and we met through that. So like he come over to my house with his brother through a friend of mine. And it's 15 years later, we've reconnected and started doing some pad sessions together, boxing. And he's like, I still remember how we met with those shirts. You're the MMA shirt guy, as he remembers me. But I dabbled on eBay, right? And when I say dabbled on eBay, I found some success. I started going to back then it was called Magic Millions, right? And I didn't even know back then, but I sort of sometimes realized, and I don't like this saying. I actually don't like this saying because I think it is closed-minded. But there's an old saying that I always hear come up here and there, or maybe it's a new saying, but for me, it's an old one. If you can't make money doing it, make money teaching it. Right? I think that's really narrow-minded because I do actually genuinely believe that there's people that make money doing it and can make money teaching it. I do sort of believe that first conference I went, I think I spent 10 grand, 15 grand. And I was in the room and, they were saying, here's this black book of 50 secrets. And the first 5 people that run to the front of the room and touch the book will... get it for 10 grand instead of 20 grand. I still believe, that stuff's a bit skeptical, to say the least. But it was some good learnings there, especially when it comes to sales. And the eBay, and I'm in Coles now and I'm on Seek. I'm typing all this stuff in, trying to get a bit fancy, like online, sales, BDM. I'm getting all this stuff. And I typed in eBay, I still remember like yesterday, this job come up and it was Groupon, right? It's Groupon. And it's, now we're fast forwarding a bit because I talked about 2005 and the eBay store, right? So to put that in perspective, I get this job with Groupon in 2011. So I have my Coles moment in 2011, and probably 2010, 2011. And where I was going in between that time, I've already gone to China probably, we'll say roughly, we'll go with 3 times, but no more than 5 times. I've already gone to China. And we're talking about, in those days in China, we're talking about even your translator. I mean, their English is very limited. Factories, we're talking, looked like schools because everyone wore the same clothes and looked quite young.
Yeah, shit.
But very friendly, very good. Fast forward 15 years later, some of the young guys I've seen that with like the sons of the owners, you go back there and the roads are amazing. They're driving Ferraris. They probably speak English better than me and probably ride it better than me. So it was crazy to see that, that change from, 2005 to my last trip in China, which was 2019, I think just before COVID, or 2018 maybe. I think I went in the October, either way. But I type in eBay, I go for this Groupon interview, and I try and talk a little bit of numbers just to put it in perspective. So I mentioned I'd done the forklift, I'd done the Coles, and you're talking just grind. Overtime's where the money is, yeah? And I'm trying to remember, when I went for this Groupon job, it was a product buyer. So I was like, well, that's me, right? Like I source these products from America, like the shirts we talked about. I sourced the products from like down south on these 2 suppliers. I've dabbled in the stuff from China. I haven't had much success. Like I played around with Android tablets, and that was a disaster, absolute disaster when they first come out, to try and compete against iPads and stuff like that, which is a story maybe for another time. My own products and that, and it was all a disaster. And what I mean by disaster, maybe I'm cutting myself short. It was the learnings, right? That built the overnight success where the brand comes later. And I'm just getting back to that memory bank now, trying to hit that hard drive, which has got a bit of wear and tear in it. It's definitely still the 84 model with only maybe 1 terabyte, if that. So I'm hitting that hard drive now. But I go for the job, and the way the job works out, it's like, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to travel probably 2 hours a day on a train, right? So I live in Campbelltown, and this job is, I'm trying to think where they were back then. Somewhere in the city, right?
Yeah.
I know we moved to Hunter Street when they changed office, but I can't remember if that was the first one, second one. Anyway, it's getting away from myself now, but irrelevant. It was their first original office, and travel 2 hours a day. I'm basically going to do nearly, I believe, around the same day, if that makes sense. Like as in travel 2, I think, getting there, if that makes sense, on the train, work 8 hours, travel 2 back. So I'm going to do probably about a 12-hour day. There's going to be no overtime. There's this carrot of commission, and I'm going to start on less money. But I was really drawn to, this is an opportunity. So I remember going out, had to buy a whole new wardrobe, put the fluoros away.
Yeah.
I'm the city guy now. And it was the business shirt, business pants, the tie even. That's how I got the job, right? I dressed the part. And I get in there and start the job, and it's all real, it's like modern, like people wearing, like trendier sort of stuff. But you fast forward about 10 months after that, and I get this alias Top Cat, TC Top Cat in there. I'm cracking deals out. So it was all about deals. I was basically like a mediator. So we never used to buy product, right? We only used to
market it, basically, right?
Exactly. So we'd have suppliers. But here's the thing about marketing, right? It was my job to see trends and understand that if I went, say you were my supplier, if I went to you and said, Julian, like, I've got an opportunity here, like, for example, one that hits mind, I think it was DeLonghi back then. They brought out the first glass kettle where you could see through it and see the blue light. That kettle, I won't get too specific and add people's names, but I went to a supplier, and, they could land that kettle here in Australia for like $30. That DeLonghi one, the retail back then was like 3 something. So now we got this product at $30. Then once again, I don't want to put myself in any hot water, no pun intended, but you get creative with the ACCC back then to establish a retail price, because I think back then it was maybe like 3 sales. So let's just say by coincidence, 3 people you knew as a supplier brought it at $300. So now you've got a established recommended retail at 300. So when you see it on Groupon for $150, 50% off, but it is actually 50% off, the DeLonghi one. And maybe it's a brand you haven't heard of. And I'm sure, I know for me, one of my recent, talk about recent times, when I go into Costco now, I've only been in there 2 or 3 times just for anxiety levels, because I get pretty anxious in there trying to navigate that big trolley and see all the brands I've never seen in my life. It's the same thing like that. Like you wouldn't even know if these brands are, have they been just created, for this product. And I got really good at it. So to be really open with you and not to put tickets on myself, but when I come in, there was, I still remember like it was yesterday, there was Phil Lever. He was head German. So it was German ran. So it was, trying to remember now their surname. They were basically second richest from Audi, like as in not the car, Audi, the supermarket.
Yeah.
I think they call it some Samba Brothers. I'm probably getting that so wrong, and I probably shouldn't say names because I'm going to sound like an idiot. But they owned City Deals, right, which was in Europe, and they were basically like eBay's competition, right? But then Groupon somehow done a deal with them where they come into Groupon, and then they created Australia. So when I first started with Groupon, it was like nearly 50%, maybe 60% of the office was German, and it come from Germany, right? So Phil was there, American guy Jackson Valentine, he was there, and then there was got UK guy, and if he ever seen this podcast and said I was stumbling to remember his name, I've actually just lost his name about that. But anyway, he was the gun. Yeah. He was the gun. So maybe it'll come to me a bit later, but he was the gun. He was doing probably about 8 deals a week. Jackson was doing about 4 deals. And they were, when I say they were smacking it commission-wise, it was probably, once again, I'm not great with figures and I don't want to get too stuck in the particular, but it was like double your wage, yeah?
Yeah. Well,
they were doubling their wage. Yeah. So now that going back to that mass and where I'm going into deep diving into that, it was like out of the forklift, working the same hours for half the money or bit over half, suit and tie sort of thing, everything, really nice, watching my iPad into the city, watching shows, downloading Prison Break back then or whatever it was I was watching, going, oh, this is the life, and all the fancy coffees and that in the city, I need to get this commission. But I blew it out of the park. That's straight up. I went, within a month, I went, all right, 8 deals a week. It's a piece of piss. 10, 16, got up to some stage there was like 40 deals.
In a week.
Yeah. I was creating the deals. So what I would do is I'd watch the international sites and even the competition, and I'd see something like duck and down pillow, right? Going off, Once again, it's bad with numbers because maybe some people that I've worked with in Groupon will hear this and say, oh, these numbers you're talking absolute rubbish. But, 1,000 deals sold, 2 pillows for $49, 4 pillows for $79, or 8 pillows, because who knows, maybe people need 8 pillows for X amount of dollars, and 1,000 deals sold, yeah? So then I'd go, all right, well, pillows are good, yeah? Bang, Google. What are good compositions of pillows or different types of pillows? Microfiber. All right, so microfiber's cheaper. So let's hit it again. Come back to Julian. Julian, I need some microfiber pillows. Boom, 1,000 deals sold. Bit of a lower price point. Memory foam comes out. Bing. Oh, here we go. Bamboo comes out. Oh, wow. Here we go again. What about memory foam, but with an ice pad on it for summer, like a cooling pad? Yeah. You don't put it, it's not ice, but it had a cooling pad on it. Cooling gel. Like a gel, yeah. A gel. Oh, here we go again. Then we're back to the goose again. Oh, pillows are good. What about quilts? All these people that brought pillows, maybe they want quilts. Now let's do some mattresses. Blah, 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 blah. And it just rolls on, right? So these deals are just created out of, once again, with something that sort of lights that spark and that flame. And that really got me into the wheel, like when you say like wheeling, dealing, or I know even still sometimes today, some people that maybe have had interaction with me, like, oh, you got the gift of the gab. You're a wheeler dealer, I've had some people say, you're like a con man, but you're a good guy, like this, you know what I mean? There's always a message, I suppose, in in these lines, and I always like to look at the cup half full than half empty. So I always look for the positive in the con men. I don't know, like maybe con guys do some good stuff. Like maybe I'm Robin Hood of the con man, but I don't know. That's the way I look at it. But it gave me like when I say high level, it gave me exposure just to like how broad and how wide the road is of where you can go. To try and move things, because I'm blabbering, but move things on a bit quicker. I then get tapped on the shoulder by a competition. It's Living Social. I was head of products at that time in Groupon. So I was running the show. I went from just being, it makes me sound so, maybe I should be a lot more modest, but from being a BDM to stepping up to head of products. I get tapped on the shoulder. Living Social pulls me across. I get dragged into a 2-week court case because I had a non-compete.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right? But when Living Social took me across, right? And this is where the light bulb talks about where I was mentally, like as in it was money.
Yeah.
It was just money driven, money hungry. So when they tapped me on the shoulder and I got this phone call and it's like, we want to have coffee with you and we want to give you this offer, I was like, money, this is, everything I've worked for the last, from 14 to now we're like 2000 and I don't know, let's go with 2014. So you're talking, I'm so bad with maths, like on this, doing the podcast here, like I'm on the pressure and I'm normally really good with money.
No, you don't need to go into
into the detail, but I'm there, right? And it's money, I take the job. But I destroy myself. What I mean by destroy myself is I lose the drive.
Yeah.
I go across to Living Social, the passion's not there. I went there for the money. I went over there maybe with a chip on the shoulder too. Like, I was the man over there, I'm the man over here, and I'm the, the guy that's going to do all this. Lost the passion. And I hit December, and this is a big defining moment. I hit December of 2014. I come home to my wife, and my wife says to me, oh, you're always in a shit mood. You're always working. I'm quite open to talk about this. I was in that city life, drinks Monday night, drinks Tuesday night, moments there where I could have come home at left the office at 5. I chose to stay back and have those drinks as the man, you know what I mean? Socialize, network. I had all these voices in my head saying, if you're going to stay on top, and they weren't voices in my head, voices in my ear. These were coming from people, that were on the top or were above me on the corporate ladder, saying you got to mingle. You can't be going home to Campbelltown and, you don't even really want to be talking about Campbelltown, right? You want to just be in the mix, having the coffees in the morning, having the drinks at the night. Drugs got involved, like cocaine. That's where that come into the mix. I thought that was the lifestyle, looking cool, being around it and all that sort of jazz. And I lost the fire. My wife's seen that. And so when we had that break in December, in a roundabout way, I said, I'm done, stuff it. I'd rather go back to driving a forklift or I'll find something else, or I didn't know what I was going to do. I sit on the bench, so to speak, from to about February. Cousins of mine, 2 sisters, they're on Instagram, smashing it. It's 2015, yeah? February, smashing Instagram. What I mean by smashing is they have this business called Toucan, 2 sisters, and they can, but it's sort of spelled like toucan, like the bird, yeah?
The bird, yeah.
But they were doing prints, but they were doing customized prints. So, like my oldest son's name's Dion. So, you want Dion and you want an elephant, you want to frame it in your room. They were doing the prints, and I'm throwing random numbers out there, but I remember it was something like this. They'd be selling that print off for like $20, print it for 30 cents, right?
Yeah, wow.
So ching, and Instagram, and it's sparked me up. It just come off online from Groupon or Living Social at that stage. Never been on Instagram before. Get onto Instagram and just go, wow. There's accounts like, once again, I don't want to get tied in numbers, but, I don't even know I don't follow her by no means, but Temi Hembro, I think she's on like millions and millions. But I think even back then, maybe 100,000 tops, and the light bulb goes off that goes, I've made all these brands, right? I've made all these products, right? For other people. And without going into detail for myself, that's a story maybe not for the air, for legal reasons, but for myself. In the mix of things. And I'm going to make a real brand. Just what I say to myself. I make a real brand. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if it's going to be the bed sheets, the pillows, I talked about them. I don't know if it's going to be the glass kettle. But I go, I'm going to make something here. Like, I've got the network. I've been to China. I knew how to be in Guangzhou, like Canton Fair, right? I knew how to be there, and I knew how to say words in Mandarin to get myself back to my hotel, how to get to my favorite Turkish restaurant over there, which I absolutely love, and pretty much used to, when I stay in China for 3 weeks, eat there every night, right? I knew things. I was like, I can do this. And then with my cousins there, I really picked their brain, what they were doing, how Instagram worked. And I jumped, man. I said, somehow I've come across Daniel Wellington, right?
Yeah.
And I've always had this mentality that I'll always live by, and always even tell my kids, and it's probably a mentality I've heard somewhere, right? Is I get when people say, like, when you walk in a room, and I'm a talker, right? Talk a lot. But I actually listen a lot too. I listen a lot more. So even though I talk a lot and people think while I'm talking, I'm not listening or sizing things up, I'm taking a lot in. I really am taking a lot in. But I always walk in a room and go, I'm not the smartest, right? But I look around that room and I go, but I can at least be as good as you. So even the top guy in the room, I go, I can at least do as good as you. I really believe that in myself, no matter what scene it is, no matter what industry it is, no matter what challenge it is. I'm like, well, if it's humanly possible, yeah? If you can see a person in that room that's done that, surely I can do that. I'm good enough to do that. And what I lack in skill, I make up in effort, 100%.
Work ethic. Yeah.
Work ethic, you know what I mean? I've been there. I'll bring something else to the table that they maybe don't have, or more so, not, even if we've got all the same tools and we've got all the same stuff, I'm going to draw inspiration from a different place and match it with enthusiasm, So I seen Daniel Wellington and I said, you know what? Even at that stage, I said, well, what if I don't even, like, do I even need to do it as good as them? That's the real question, you know what I mean? When you look at some big brands, like, I don't know if someone's sitting back, like, let's just say I inspired to have a fitness clothing brand, right? If everyone's being honest with each other, what's, for me, right? For me, it'd be Nike, right? What would it be for you if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I do like Nike. I like Adidas.
Yeah, Nike, Adidas.
I'm not like a cult following of one. Like I wear gear from Under Armour. I wear gear from. I just look at the particular garment, or like I've got obviously the Nike Jordans here. So
yeah,
we love Nike as a business, but we have these sort of windbreaker jackets that are Adidas with our branding on them.
Nice.
So yeah, but I know what you're saying.
But you think of the big brands, right?
Of course.
So then, if the entrepreneur, let's call it, or just the me, when I see that, I go, well, I actually think I'm like, it's going to sound crazy to say this out loud, but I'm thinking, like, if I wanted it, I'll be as big as Nike. But then there's also another side of me that goes, if that's like aiming for the stars, right? And that's, in this example, it's probably aiming for, I don't know, the planets, right? But what if you just hit the clouds?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be good enough? Wouldn't that be big enough? So that was the idea around the watches, So I started with the watches, and I spent, for the record, probably about 3 days, and I didn't sleep. Man, honestly, it sounds crazy. Coffee, no drugs, right? I know I spoke about the drugs before, but no drugs. Couldn't sleep because I had a fire lit in me. I had a fire just to go, like, it's going to be the watches, but what am I going to do? I'm on a bit of paper and I can't draw for crap. I can't, I'm drawing stick figures if I'm drawing. I'm not a drawer, right? But I'm trying to design a watch, right? And then I keep going back to, one thing I haven't spoken about in here, which I think is my biggest skill is I problem solve. I always work problems out. So even when there's this big problem or small problem, sometimes the biggest problem in the room or the biggest problem in the business, I can click of the fingers and I can work it out. The small problems might take me 10 times as long to work out, so it's not necessarily my skill set. I don't know, it just sort of shifts to where I'm at. So there was this big problem of where we're going to go and big problem to draw. And then I drew inspiration, let's call it. But let's not reinvent the wheel. What do I like of this? What do I like of that? What will I bring to the table? There's no Australian watch brand. That was the light bulb for me too. There's no one out there representing Australia. And I'm like, mate, we're big enough. We're good enough. The market's not here. I always knew the market was going to be overseas. It was going to be international. But once again, if I could just capture the Australian market, for a guy living in St. Helens Park in Campbelltown? Isn't that big enough? Isn't that good enough? And how can I just try to basically, fulfill this hunger, this new thing to go, I've done it for other people. I've done it for other brands on other platforms. Now it's on me. If I can get some sort of level of success, it's going to be pure satisfaction because, I'm not going to just eat from my plate. I'm going to eat from my table, my cutlery, my, drink from my, everything I come from or get from, it's going to be everything. It's going to be, we spoke about it before, so math's going to make me sound maybe intelligent. It's going to be the 17-year overnight success if I make it. And I go for it, man. And where I go for it? There's another defining moment. Those 3 days I kept looking up at a marble clock on the wall. And I needed a design. I needed something new. And then bang, man, it hit me. Like, why do I have a marble clock in the house? This rose gold marble clock? Because it's fashion. I like it. I like marble. I like the look of it. I was like, I'm going to put that on a watch. Has anyone done that yet? No one had done it. So then I played with real marble. Then that got a bit expensive and it was a bit erratic colors and blah, blah, blah. So then we sort of designed and printed the perfect marble. So every watch was the same at that stage. I created 2 colors. And I don't know how I come about this or where I got this idea from in a way. But back then in 2015, I think, now with all regulations, like we spoke about this before, like collaboration and, I then can click if I want to approve it and collaborate with you. And I think you've got to even, if you've been given a product, you've got to declare that, right? 2015, man, there was none of that. You know what I mean? So somewhere in my head, I just went, you know what I could do? I could create a brand overnight by sort of having it everywhere overnight. So we're talking about a retail watch. It's $200, right? I landed it here in Australia for $30. Yeah. I manufactured 500. So I had a black one, called it the Strand, and I had a pink one. So it was black marble, black band, black case, the Strand. I named all the watches after beaches, just so you know.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Okay.
So then I had the Bondi marble, pink, 2017. Selena Gomez wears the watch, right? My PR company went to town with that, but the pink watch. And then I went out there to Instagram. And that's another thing too, with Instagram now, and I'm not an Instagram expert, but if you just start like spamming, if I message you, we're not friends, the next person, eventually I think Instagram sort of hits the brakes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And they're like, you can't send all these messages at once. Back then, 2015, you could just bombard, right? So I'm looking at just everyone in Australia, right, that had big accounts, whether it's fitness, whether it's fashion, whether it's this, that, I can't even put it in categories, but just big, male, female, this, that, whatever, I'd nearly put a watch on a dog if I had to, if they had a big account, but there wasn't that many big accounts in 2015, right? But big accounts, yeah. And I went to them, I still sort of remember the message, right? But it was something along the lines of, I'm Tim Caruana. I founded this watch brand, Christian Paul, right? Which I'll go into detail in a minute. And I would like to send you a watch for free. All I'd ask is that you would post and tag me. And the launch date's the 1st of July, right? So I got 500 watches, 15 grand invested. Yeah, they're landed in my living room. All I need to know is if what's your favorite color, black or pink, right? And my goal was just 250 of the black, 250 of the pink, and to get them out there and spread it. They launched on the 1st of July. And then I remember I was on Shopify back then. That first night we launched, me and my wife at the dining table, ding, 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 ding. Sales, man. It popped. It just like, mate, it went gangbusters. Sales just started coming through. And I had a big eye. Well, I was going to say eye for the detail. You can imagine how exciting it is sitting at your dining room table and packing orders.
Yeah.
Really going $170 profit. Express post, satchel, sealing it over. $199 sell price, $30 land price. I was just thinking, 170, 170. You know, what are we up to now? Thousands. You know, this is me. Never going back to Groupon, never going back to Living Social, never going back to the forklift, you know, never going back to the MMA store. This is it. I've made it. And then this order come up and it was getting sent to the Iconic, right? Are you familiar with the Iconic?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Iconic back then is the CEO of Groupon, which I knew, German. Samba Brothers also created the Iconic. So he moved across to the Iconic, right? And it didn't even light bulb me to sort of like try, you know, like I was just thinking I was going to be an online brand, yeah? I didn't think about stores.
Distribution partners and
Nothing, yeah? 1st of July, we launch. This watch sells. You know, I don't want to make the story up, but within the first 7 days, I can see it's getting sent to the Iconic, right? I go to write an email because I'm thinking outside the box. You know, I want to try and get on the Iconic, yeah? So I'm going to send an email. Luckily enough, in a way, before I sent the email, I seen an email. It was a returns email. The person that brought the watch wanted to return it. And I thought, oh man, here we go. Something's gone wrong, you know, because, you know, my quality assurance is still fresh, blah, 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 blah. I called them up. I can't remember her name. I'd be lying, but I do remember she was a women's shoe seller, right? Or buyer, I should say.
Yeah.
Buyer is the right word. And so I knew at this stage, and I asked her, I was very forward. I said, oh, look, are you looking to stock the watch? She said, no, I've just brought it personally, and I just like to get my deliveries to where I work. I said, oh, what's the problem with the watch? She said, look, to be honest with you, I went with the pink. I am more like what can I say? Like what's the conservative?
Yeah.
I should have went with the black. I've gone with the pink, and it's a little bit too much. So I want to exchange it for the black, right? So what I did is I said, look, can you help me by me helping you? She's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, what I'll do is I'll send you the black one out with a return satchel for the pink. But do me a favor, when both watches are there, I'm sure you got a relationship with the watch buyer. Could you show the watch buyer both watches and just introduce my brand? Right? She said, yeah, no problems. So what I did is I send a mate of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom. Mate, within an hour and a half, you know, he's a courier. I had it in the postal bag, delivering the watch. She's even saying to me, I don't even know how you can do fast delivery like that. I'm like, yeah, it's all good.
Meanwhile, it's your mate.
Yeah, it's my mate, right? But from that call that I had her on the phone to within 4 hours, and once again, I know I'm saying very specific with time, and we're going back in the memory bank a while, and I don't want to exaggerate it, but I reckon I'm just trying to set the tone of how fast things moved. I've got the watch buyer on the phone. Remember, I've got 2 designs now, yeah?
Yeah.
I've gone from trying to draw stuff to I've just sort of grabbed a bit from this watch brand, that one, made my own sort of thing, understand about how movements work. So if you want this design look, you use this Mayota movement. So you don't pick movements based on even what they do. Excuse me. But you pick them on the design aspect, you know, how thick your side profile is, blah, 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 how many arms or hands you want in the watch. You know, I learned all this stuff as I went. I wasn't what is even the word for a watch person? It starts with H. It's like a it's a fancy name. So I'm definitely not one of them. I can't even pronounce the name or remember the name. But within 4 hours from that first call with the buyer of the shoes, I got the watch buyer on the phone, and she says, I want to sell the brand. I'm going to raise a purchase order. I want to sell the brand. But I'm not comfortable with only 2 SKUs, 2 color selections. And I'm like, you know, I'm not, there's no glitch in here, yeah? You know, sales is in my blood. I've been selling myself since 14. You know, I'm not glitching here. I'm like, oh yeah, that's just 2 colors I launched with. I got 3 ready to go. We already got stock and everything. She's like, really? I said, yeah. Do you want to see them? Yeah, boom, man. I said, look, I'm not meant to show a lot of people this. Give me a couple of hours, right? Give me to the end of the day, and I'll show you the other 3 SKUs. Boom, man. Phone off. Straight on to QQ. It was back then. You know, like the WhatsApp of today, the QQ. I remember the little penguin icon. I'm onto my factory going, mate, I need digital designs of these 3 colors. I just made the colors up on the spot. You know, tan band, black case, rose gold with a white band. And the other one, 1, 2, 3. Think. Gold.
Yeah.
Gold, black dial. So I had a lot of rose gold going on, or black dial, but I introduced the gold dial, gold, black, and black strap. Sent her the photos, right? An email. Some fancy stuff. No GPT back then. So whatever I sort of wrote in my,
most professional
voice. Keep them, confidential. She raised an $80,000 purchase order.
Fuck.
Yeah, you're telling me, right? I'm literally like, gives me goosebumps talking about it. That's for real. I'm like, gives me goosebumps to go like what, WTF? Like, what are we doing here? Like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? And also too, it's not even time to pat myself on the back, but I'm in this, like, is this real? I want to nearly pinch myself. That's no joke. Like, are we really here? Like, I've literally gone, throw my job in, right? Do nothing with myself, come across my cousins killing it on Instagram. And I'm like, I want a piece of that. I'm creating this watch brand. I always hear this, right? I always hear this, another thing, I'm going to Jamble. When they don't tell people your goals, or don't tell people what you're striving for if they're not at that level. Because it seems like people, shut you down.
Yeah. This is a bit of the tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, 100% it is. But, when I told people I'm starting a watch brand, people were like, how are you going to compete against Rolex? And I was like, well, I'm not. I'm going to sell a $200 watch. Oh, who's going to buy a $200 watch? I'm like, yeah, there's people out there. Like, there's brands out there. Like, I'd show people. I'd actually showed people early or close enough around to me that I actually told my idea. They could have gone out there and done my idea. Hey, here's Daniel Wellington. Here's this brand. I won't say the other brands, some sort of Australian brands, some low-key stuff that people didn't even know about, right? That wasn't getting represented on the higher level internationally. And some other brands, right? And mate, we're 8 days in, 10 days in, or whatever it is, rough estimates, just under 2 weeks. I got an $80,000 purchase order. Mate, I'm on a plane to China and I'm manufacturing these watches. Like, I'm standing in the factory trying to help them put it together because I want to get this order into their warehouse in Sydney and I want 80 Gs. You know what I mean? I want I'm the little leprechaun dancing at the end of the rainbow and I want the pot of gold. I want that 80 Gs and I want to deliver. We get it. And we go through a bit of turmoil because when I first started out, like I imagine a lot of people do these days, you do like the Alibaba. That's still it was big back then too, the Alibaba, or, I had a Chinese guy on the ground that I worked with Groupon. He's like, I'll take you to the factories and all this sort of stuff. Mate, with those first models I put out, from where I finished on the quality, were like, and I say this in the most respectful way. Remember, I'm of ethnic background, so I'm not trying to make any derogatory, comments here or anything. My first watches may as well have got put together with people using their feet as far as quality control and the quality of where I had them. And people were happy with that. Where I finished off with the brand.
What was the fashion state? If you're buying a $200 watch, it's almost like an accessory to your outfit.
Yeah, it is.
And a lot of people buy multiple $200 watches based on what outfit they're wearing that day. So they're not expecting, whereas versus using the Rolex example, that is a statement piece that it wouldn't matter what you're wearing the Rolex, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you dress stuff around the watch.
You dressed around the watch as opposed to dressing the type of watch around your outfit.
Correct. And you hit the nail on the head. And even like back then I didn't even wear a watch. Let's be honest. Forget about wearing a Rolex. I didn't even wear any watch, right? I worked on my time. That was another thing too. Time for me was it was irrelevant. I didn't know, dinner time, lunchtime, breakfast. There was no, it's just like bang, bang, bang. It didn't matter what time it was. It was work time, and I find like, I jump into like maybe a few bits and pieces, maybe laugh with stories. I actually told friends of mine, we only had at lunch like a week ago, and I told them this story, and this is sort of like maybe the character of me, or just how the universe maybe just sort of works or spindles its way and gives you these moments. I remember with the watches, right, the way it worked is there was an assembly factory, and Other parts would come from other factories. So, like the dial, so the actual face. So we're talking not functionality, we're talking the aesthetics, yeah? Just the face. That would come from a factory. And then in the factory that assembled it, they would actually put the indexes on, right? And they put the hands on. And the indexes and hands, those little metal pieces, they'd come from a different factory. And the case would come from a different factory. Makes sense? So all the leather straps would come from a different factory. But I hit gold where, remember I told you I had the first factory where my quality wasn't great? My dials were fantastic because remember I went from real marble to the design marble, and I was so particular about how the quality was to make it look like real marble, but it wasn't real marble. And that wasn't about cost. It was just about keeping it consistent. Because the other thing too, if I'm not putting you on the spot or hit you the hard questions, but what do you reckon the most important thing is about a watch? In theory, think about the functionality of it.
Well, I think that's
what's the most important thing.
Oh, the time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You need to be able to tell the time.
Yeah.
So when I had the real marble, because the pattern was so sporadic, some of the watches were actually hard to tell the time when I was using.
Oh yeah.
Aesthetically.
Yeah.
That's what led the light bulb off to go. It's expensive, right? But price is not even a factor at the moment. Some of these watches actually they might look good, but man, they're hard to tell the time. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I've only been to school year 9, but I can still tell the analog time. You know what I mean? I don't need digital, but they were hard to see. So that's what led us there. Where I'm going with that is that manufacturer had to step outside the box and go to a high quality dial factory. When I went on one of my tours there and I knew I had to bring, and this is the problem solving and why I'm spending a little bit of time talking about this, is when I knew I had to raise my quality, I knew my dial was the highest quality thing of my watch, but everything else around it, and remember I only had the contact of the assembly, but everything else around it was subpar. To say it was shit would probably be too harsh, but it wasn't great.
Less than ideal.
I wanted people to open the watch up, right, and go, wow, how's this $200? You know what I mean? It definitely wasn't that. It was going, yeah, I'm happy to pay 200, but then it's later on months or bits and pieces, you start having the warranty and bits and pieces, you want to just raise the quality. So I end up convincing that assembly factory that I wanted to go to the dial factory. But there was only one reason why I wanted to go to the dial factory.
See what else they could build with.
I knew that if they're giving me this quality dial, the chances are I'll go into that factory and I want to find out if they're doing any other brands, big brands of quality, and where do those dials go to get assembled? Because that's what I need. The key part of watch manufacturing is the assembly factory, because they work with the strap factory, the buckle and case factory, which is metal. They work with the plating factory, which plates it rose gold, stainless steel. They work with the indexes arms. They work with the Miyota movement factories. They're like the house, the quality house. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So I'll touch base on this, right? So I go to this dial factory, yeah? I get in there, there's a shorter guy in raggedy clothes, yeah? And then I say tall guy and short guy. Taller guy, right? In great dressed, English good, right? So really early in the piece, I somehow and this is where I say to you, never assume, yeah? Never make assumptions. Somewhere, because it's, broken English and all that sort of stuff, and I'm excited, I guess. I'm not really focused in on the dynamics of what's sort of happening in this scene. I just want to get to the line. So when I see the Fossil dial, when I see the Hugo Boss dial, I can go, where do these go? That's what I got in my head, yeah? I'm on a mission to find out where those dials go, right? I knew we hit the jackpot when I walked into the factory floor they were manufacturing, and bang, just like I used those examples, there's the Boss dial.
Yeah.
There's the Fossil dial. I'm like, praise be, here we go. This is it. This is my time. Go back to the short and the tall guy. I, for some reason, believe that the tall guy owns the factory and the short guy's the worker, right? And he's, I wouldn't say I'm a big guy, right? But in China or maybe at that stage or whatever, or big compared to these guys here, he keeps grabbing me and saying muscles or something, something in broken English, the littler guy, yeah? after about 15 minutes of that, and remember, I'm trying to talk to the taller guy that speaks well English, well dressed, about, I can't just sort of go, hey, where do those dials go? I'm
weaving your way in.
weaving my way in, getting the rapport, a few little jokes with the broken English and whatever I can do. The little guy keeps like touching me. So for whatever reason, not in a bad way or mouse way, I actually just grab him in a headlock and give him a noogie. You know what I mean? Literally give him a noogie and laugh around, joke around, and I put a little bit of elbow into it, sort of go like, mate, like enough with the mucking around sort of thing, So, we're trying to do business over here. Anyway, I couldn't get what I wanted in a way. And I know that sounds a bit bratish maybe, but they invite me to lunch, right? So we go to lunch, and in China, I don't know if it's still much the same, but they love a long neck beer. Yeah. I'm actually sober since October from drink, drugs, and all that sort of stuff. They put it way behind me. But back then I loved to drink. Yeah. And it was part of my language. Yeah. So lunch and the long neck beers come out. Right. And just so you know, these long neck beers, they're not like a VB. They're not even like a Tui's. Like they make flavored, they're cordial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they have a little cup around, so you pour the cup out of this long neck, and it's a big deal for these guys to have a skull, right? So me being, me and, want to really break the ice, I grab the new long neck that hasn't been drunk, boom, straight out the bottle, bang, down it. These guys are clapping like they've seen, they've seen the light.
It's a party trick.
It's a party trick. So I grab two. Boom, same breath, second one, right? I'm not joking. Like I'm down them, mate. And I'm not even, I've got mates that drink me under the table, right? I'm not even drunk, right? But I'm enjoying myself. And I've now got a little bit of liquor under me where I'm going with that, and a little bit of the entertainment. And I say to him, I just jump straight in, mate. Not going to muck around. Those dials you showed me in the factory, where do they go? Bang, they tell me. Straight away, they tell my guy I'm with, my translator, speak in their language, and we get the supply. I'm like, wow. Then they turn around and say to me, because I tell my guy, well, I want to go there tomorrow. They turn around and say to my guy, we'll take him there now. Mate, I'm like, get another 3 long necks. Yeah. Mate, if this, if I skull 3, what else are you going to tell me? You know what I mean? Yeah. As long as everyone's keeping their clothes on, I'm comfortable, Yeah. But we get up, we eat, right? We eat and we do all the traditional stuff. There's that soup with the fisheye looking at you on the side, and I eat all the food and keep everything, real happy and enjoy myself. And we get up to go to the car, and the tall guy says, I forget the gentleman's name. It's so rude to forget this sort of stuff. But I won't stereotype the name. We'll just say Mr. X. The owner of the factory, the dial factory, says you're one of the nicest guys he's ever met. And I'm like, I thought you were the owner in my head. So the tall guy in the nice clothes talked well. I assumed he was the owner. The shorter guy in raggedy clothes that I'm noogieing, right? That I'm, not, I wouldn't say like taking the piss out of him. Definitely not taking the piss, but, and I gave him respect. I always respect the people, I'll be honest with you, right? But I just sort of, keep in mind, I knew I had to get somewhere, you know what I mean? I had to, it sounds quite selfish and sounds very maybe rude, but I had a goal, had a mission to get to that factory. He wants to personally drive you. And he drove me to the factory. He hit the buzzer. I still remember it like yesterday. He hit the buzzer, spoke in his language, don't know what he said. Big gates open, like Wizard of Oz maybe, boom. I'm in the factory and there's the production line, man, all the top brands, and I'm in. My manufacturing went from subpar to world class. And there I am.
How long did it take you to go from the first supplier to how many, was it 6 months, 12 months?
It's a good question. I'm not the greatest with time, even though I've talked about time so much in this podcast.
Just roughly.
I would say within 12 months.
Yeah.
Because there was always the, whatever you want to call it metaphorically, the banging monkey or the cymbals, that noise, that headache of this for warranty, that for warranty, this happening, that happening. And I was like, I knew in my heart, I knew that my dial, because I'd seen the watch, I'd been in the factory so many times. So I could see the elements. I could see how my dials turned up to the factory all the way down to, It sounds crazy, but how the sticky tape was on the box
Yeah.
compared to how the sticky tape was on the box of like where my
The indexes or whatever.
indexes come from or the bands come from. You know what I'm saying? You could just see. You just see the quality in the presentation of how it got delivered from these other factories. So I knew I wasn't in the right place.
But you just kind of skimmed over it. How on earth did you get Selena Gomez to wear your watch?
Yeah,
And
great
obviously that
question.
was a very clever strategy to create demand for it, right?
Yeah. So I already had a PR company at this stage because if you fast forward in that first 12 months, I've gone from like, and we can touch and we can come back on this stuff, but I had Kate Waterhouse ambassador to the brand and I'm sold in all 37 Maya stores. That's by November.
Yeah.
Started the brand in July. I'm in 37 stores in Maya in November, right?
That's crazy.
And I'll talk a bit more of that. But to answer your question, Selena Gomez, that's 2017. Number one Instagram account. Second to only Cristiano Ronaldo, right, on Instagram. A friend of my wife's reaches out to my wife and says, I've got a meet and greet with Selena Gomez. Would Tim be able to sell me a watch? I want to give her a watch. I say, we can do one better. I won't sell you a watch. I'll give you a watch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it engraved on the back. So I go down to Mr. Minute, MacArthur Square, yeah? To Selena Gomez from your number one fan, Christina. Selena Gomez in the meet and greet, right? It must be a lovely person. I've never met her in person. Takes off a Rolex. I know we already spoke about a Rolex. Takes off a Rolex, puts my watch on. When you do meet and greet, you get the high def pictures, right? I got given the high definition pictures, gave them to my PR company. You can still Google it to today, news.com.au or whatever it is, or .com and this and that. And she wore the Bondi marble. We sold out of that watch that night when those pictures went out. You know, maybe a couple of thousand pieces.
Wow.
Like it was, mate, it was big. I'll double back if you don't mind. Like,
Yeah,
and when you
of
talk
course.
about, you know, 'cause I'm just trying to give like, and whether I'm off subject, you can tell me, but just give like, you know, defining moments or,
Yeah.
you know, if I labeled myself anything, the problem solver moments or the finding ways to elevate. A big elevation for my brand was, I noticed when I done the study on Daniel Wellington, I noticed that they had distribution, right? Which was a concept I understood, but I didn't really understand it in the sense of like it's around us every day. You know, when you walk into, you know, pick a random brand like Universal Store, you know, we look at all the brands that are there. Where do they come from? Who has the rights to distribute? Who sells that brand? You know, Nike, we spoke about Nike shoes. You know, have you ever thought to yourself, you know, TNs, why can I only go to Foot Locker? Who's gate guarding that, or who's controlling and directing where certain things go so the overall sales of a brand elevate, yeah? It's a distributor, right? It's as simple as that. The distributor is the key holder or really like the player number one. Obviously, their goal is to get to the end of the financial year and sell the most of that product, yeah? So they need to understand where they're going to put it, keep the price point, make sure they're keeping it with people that got a price point. It leads me to West End Collection, right? Which they originally in West End up in Brisbane, but he moved down to Melbourne when the company got brought out. But anyway, it leads me to a gentleman by the name of John Rose. So I found Daniel Wellington's Australian distributor. And I turned around and said to myself, and this was my pitch. This was my pitch from the start. Your number one, what is your number one selling watch at the moment? And he said, Daniel Wellington, by far. And I said, well, I've got a watch that's better. And he's like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by it's better? And like I said, I think it's better designed because they were back then, they just went for the Daper look. I went for the more fashion look. Yeah. So Daper meaning thinner, beveled in, you know, it was unisex, but I would you sort of see it as like a men's, my opinion of Daper. Like when you say, I'm probably not even saying it right, Dapper or Daper. Daper. I don't know if would you say to a female, you look quite Daper today? I think it's more male.
No, male thing, yeah.
It's a male thing, right?
Yeah.
Where mine was more fashion, right? And maybe more leaning towards female. And once again, I had already done the data. Their data of Daniel Wellington was about 80% female sales. So I had 80% great sales of this, what I believe to be a male watch that was only just, smaller in size and color change, like go from gold to rose gold, because rose gold, back then and maybe now, I don't want to sound too segmentational when I talk like this, but rose gold more female appealing.
Sure.
They had all these sales, so I got in his ear. His name was John Rose, and he wouldn't really give me much time of day. But I did know that there was going to be the Sydney Jewelry Show. I did know now. I thought he was in Brisbane, right? And I'll tell you how I found out he wasn't from Brisbane anymore. I found out, that he was from Melbourne. Is on one of the days I had a business partner at this stage, I sold 20% of the equity to two guys, right? One I grew up with and one was his mate. So I had some people around me at this stage, We're coming back from the city. We went to Rockpool, Had an amazing lunch, right? Just treating ourselves, Top of the world. Sales are going good. We're selling online, No distributors, none of that. But I'm having conversations with the distributor, but just getting nowhere. As we drive past, we go past Bankstown Airport, of all places, right? I don't know why we went via there, but we stopped. And my mate said to me, let's go in there. I still remember like yesterday, a guy named Ricky Pegasus, right? Like the flying horse. I still think, if you're hearing this, apologies, but I still think he didn't look like a Pegasus for surname, but it's a great catchy, that's why I still remember it today. He showed me a private jet. It was J Caruana back then.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was saying, mate, because we were just looking at jets, because I was saying, and even my business or the equity stakeholder then, he said, one day we're going to buy a private jet. We're going to travel around the world in a private jet. Let's go see it. So I wanted to see it. I sat in it. So we're going to have this one day, And he then had a light bulb moment to me and he said, you know what? I've got this, I'm not a plane guy, so I wouldn't remember the name, but I've got this plane. He showed us in that. It's not the J Car guys one. That was a pretty big jet. It was this other one. It was quite nice and quite, I don't even know about, maybe it's worth 10 mil, 15, I don't know, but it looked expensive, And it had 4 seats in the back with a board table in the middle, and the seats faced each other. And you could have someone next to the pilot. And he specifically said, you guys said you're business people. Imagine having a meeting on this plane. And then bang, it all fell to pieces. I said, Sydney Jewelry Show. This guy's in Melbourne. $7,000, That's what it was going to cost me. I'm going to go in this jet, fly to Melbourne, get him into that plane. We're going to get up in the air, no phone, no laptop for an hour. Mate, I have this guy sold. I was saying to the equity stakeholders, I was saying, mate, I have this guy sold in 20 minutes. Forget about an hour. Do you know what I mean? I'm being serious. I said, it'll be done. We'll literally have a contract that he will sign in the air. It'll be done. And they go, let's do it. Boom. So the next call I make to John, I know you don't have much time for me to have a coffee, but I'm going to tell you something. It was very vague, I've got a private jet, I'd like to come to Melbourne, pick you up from Melbourne, and bring you to Sydney for the jewelry show. All I ask is when we're up in there, you have a conversation, or let me show you my brand, John's only rebuttal was 2 things. One is, I'm not going to be in Melbourne. I'm going to be in Brisbane because the Brisbane jewelry show is on the week before Sydney. I come from Brisbane down to Sydney, right? And I already have a ticket with Qantas, right? So my rebuttals to those 2 things is private jet, mate. You could be in New Zealand, I'll come and pick you up. Be in Western Australia, I'll pick you up. So location doesn't matter, I'll pick you up from Brisbane. And the Qantas ticket, mate, I'm not charging you for this. In all due respects, if you can get a refund on the Qantas ticket, get a refund. If not, let me pick you up. About 24 hours later, I get a phone call from John. Remember, this is a guy that I would say avoided or dodged the sales guy's calls. 12 hours later, he's, I'm assuming he's in a bar. His wife's performing on stage with a guitar. He's drunk. I can hear in the phone. He's drunk. And he's asking me to confirm, that's a better word, confirm to his wife that he's actually going to fly in a private jet. Right? And I'm like, yeah, mate, he's getting picked up. About 3 days later, I go and pick him up in that jet. I used the line a little bit earlier and it's, in this podcast, and it's the line I used. It was an unbelievable experience in the sense of even when you're in this private jet, yeah. And interesting enough, my mate had a friend, Eric Growth Jr.
Oh yeah.
He actually joined us in the plane.
Oh, cool.
Right? It was cool.
Yeah.
What I seem to forget, even though my friend John was from Brisbane, so I thought he was big on rugby league, he was actually like originally from Melbourne, moved to Brisbane,
Oh, so he's
moved
AFL
back to
guy.
Melbourne, AFL guy.
Yeah.
So you didn't even know who Eric was, right? But anyway, Eric come along. We take off, and I'm telling you, and I'm sitting there with the two guys that have like 20% stakeholder in the business. They're sitting on sort of like across from each other. I'm sitting across from John, and you got Eric Growth. He's up the front next to the pilot, and we're just in the air, yeah. And small talk. I know John's a drinker. It's 11 a.m. But mate, I'm all prepared. I've asked him from other conversations. I know he likes wine and scotch, so I've got that stuff on the plane. Pouring a couple of drinks. I used to love to have a drink back then, so I'm when in Rome, or when in a private jet. It'd be 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. We're in the air, and I actually look out, and I'm like, man, this is living, yeah. This is it. This is like this. It must be like this, to be the other half. This is how the other half live, This is it. This is me. I look outside, and I'm like, man, like I'm genuinely in the moment. I look at John, and I still remember like yesterday, and I keep saying that or referring back to that, but these are the memories I always hold close to my heart. I look him square in the eyes and say, John, mate, it would be un-Australian to not sell my brand, to not have my brand. And I'm going to be really open with you. It's either you, or I won't say the other distributor's name, or this other distributor. The only reason I'm not going to them is because I know you're number one, right? I'm a bit unsure whether you're number one because you got the number one brand, but I'm also confident that that's not the real number one brand in Australia. Your market is Australia and New Zealand, and I've got a watch that can not compete with Daniel Wellington, but I actually think do better. But once again, even if it doesn't do better, do you want your competitor to have the second best watch? Because at worst case scenario, that's where we land. We land at 2. We're already nearly there. Here's the online sales. We land there, right? Remember, we're September now, yeah? 2005, I only launched the brand in July. I'm on the Iconic. Here's an $80,000 purchase order that I just delivered 2 weeks ago. He supplies the Iconic for Daniel Wellington. His eyes lit up, right? We're engaged like me and you are here. And I literally say to him, and this is how I know my level of engagement was at premium or optimum level. I said, John, and I'm going to tell you something, right? Forget about all that small talk about maybe going somewhere else. You're here and I'm here because I want you to have my brand, right? I want you to partner with me. I need you to partner with me. I want to get this brand to number one. And I'm going to tell you something. Look out the window. And he turned his head and looked. And I said, mate, I'm the sort of brand that aims for the stars. And even if I hit the clouds, it's still going to be a hell of a view. Look out there, mate, and tell me I'm wrong. And he looked out that window. He looked back at me and said, mate, it is a great view. And I said, this is what's going to happen with me. Are they flying you around in a private jet? Are they giving you this sort of stuff? This is where we're going. It's not about all the fancy stuff, but mate, even if we hit the clouds, I want it to be with you. And it can be with you, just like this moment. We got off that plane. He shook my hand in that moment in front of everyone. We'd only been in the air for 15 minutes, I'm telling you. Under 15, I promise you. Under 15. Even the other guys still today say under 10, because I said I'd do it in 20. They said you even done it half the time. But the details are irrelevant. I don't want to come across like a...
That's still an amazing story.
Yeah. But
10 or 20 doesn't
10, 20,
matter, yeah.
Mate, one plane trip that cost $7,000, right? John actually come on and worked for me, right? He traveled around with me internationally. We went to Basel World, the number one watch fair in the world. We exhibited there in 2017, 2018 at a cost of more than $500,000 each time we exhibited, right? Big time, right? Basel, man. I never even been like to Switzerland, never been. I traveled like little bits and pieces, honeymoons and, blah, blah, blah. I'm in Basel World, I'm exhibiting. We do one show, we pick up 8 countries. Wow. Now I'm in 8 countries, I'm the sort of guy that then we're making waves. And I had John in on a deal to go, well, if you sign a distributor, I'll give you a cut of their orders. He had the relationships because once a year, John used to go to Germany and all let me rephrase that, or go to Baselworld, Switzerland, and he would have the dinners, the lunches with all the other Daniel Wellington distributors. They'd talk about strategy, marketing. So he went out there and now he had a brand that he could talk about, that he was making a cut on, right? So it was in his interest to get it out there, and he helped me get it out there, right, in a big way. And we made a big splash. You know, I'd be getting calls from a Canadian distributor, right? Oh, we want to meet. I'd say to John, all right, what's going on? Can you go? John had a wife at that stage, and he had a kid, and older kid, but he couldn't, you know, I had 3 young kids. Where was I going? But I would tell my wife, like I remember when one trip I went to Montreal, yeah? I was on a phone call and I said, I'll come and see you. There was 2 distributors. I'll come and see you both. Oh, when are you going to come? I'll get back to you in half an hour of when I can get there. On to Qantas, points from the credit card, points, flying business everywhere. It was unbelievable, right? Amazing. I can get to Montreal in 33 hours, right? Basically from now to there, about 30, or maybe I'm exaggerating with the hours, but so like the shortest flight, like I've got to be in the airport within the next 2 hours, yeah? Bang, I'm about to call the guy. I'm telling my wife, pack me a bag, right? Call the guy, mate, I'm going to land here this time. Boom. I'm jumping on this plane, Nike clothes, yeah? Because I was just relaxed. I was just always myself. Nike clothes, shorts. I mean, here's another little drop for Nike, but just my Nike clothes. Hop off the plane, it's minus 29. I'm in shorts and a shirt. I've never looked at the weather. I mean, that's how crazy, or that's how just, you know, I'm giving these examples just to go, some people might say the word sporadic, but for me, it's problem solving. It's just like, maybe if it comes down to that, or just, you know, getting it done. You know, the guy that worked with me all the time, he's like, you're the guy that just gets shit done.
Yeah,
you know
I love
what I mean?
that saying.
Yeah, you just get shit done. Just get it done. I've always got this other saying, the difference between people that do stuff and that don't is the do part, right? It's pretty easy, right? So I was always just about getting it done. I'm just trying to give you all these, you know, bits and pieces, these stories. But then I'm not sure like how much time we've got left, because I want to get close.
We've spent already about an hour and 40 minutes. So it's gone quick. It's gone
an
quick.
hour and 40.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep going? Or
yeah, let's keep going. But I want to hear how you've how you've ended up where you are today. Like there's
So
been other businesses you've done heaps of cool stuff.
Heaps. So
we might have to do an episode 2 of this.
Yeah. Well, I'll speed it up and get into like the meaty parts of it. So I'll say this, I have all that success with Christian Paul. It ends up coming burning down, right? It comes burning down by my own hand, right? I'll be really open with you. You know, like getting the emotional bits back and that, but like to get to that level I got, like we're talking within 12 months of launching the brand, mate, within 12 months, I can still sort of even remember to today logging on and seeing $1 million in my account. $1 million, man. I'm living in St. Helens Park in Campbelltown.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm down at Mercedes buying a brand new C63 for 160 or 170 grand. Brand new. Boom. Let's go. White one that I used to always see 4 doors in weddings. 8 days later, I'm buying the black model in 2 doors. Why? Because I can. You know what I mean? And I lost value. I lost myself. I definitely gave away, like whether this is the right saying, you know, like to get to that level, I think you got to give a pound of flesh. You know, you got to give. And, you know, I joked around when we talked, or, you know, I used that example of the 4 kids, that would pick my wife. That was my pound of flesh, man. I never had a relationship with my kids. I lost a relationship with my wife. I was born and baptized Roman Catholic, and I was a God believer. I swear to God. You know, why would I swear to God? You should be never doing stuff like that. I had all the tattoos. I got Mary on my back, Jesus on my arm, but I was a sinner, right? I know we all, like, you know, I know it's leading his faith. Yeah. We're all sinners. Yeah. There's a big difference. I think, like, even now, you know, it's been a process for me when I gave my life to my faith in October, right? And I'm rebuilding myself now, and I'm going real, you know, not deep, but fast forward to where I am now, just in October. I gave drugs away, recreational drugs, always cocaine. So acceptable. You know, if I see someone, and I was exposed to stuff all my life, you know, people pull out a pipe and I'd be like, mate, what a junkie. But someone pulled out a bag and it was like, well,
Yeah.
you know, like, what's the
It's
harm?
way too acceptable.
Way too acceptable, man.
Yeah.
Way too acceptable. And sometimes the acceptability of it is when you know, not even just, sometimes like saying no is even still accepting it.
Yeah.
You know, in my heart, I can feel that. You know, being around it, I'm still,
Yeah.
and I'm at a crossroad now because I'm still, you know, it's October, yeah. So I'm still like in the mix of, you know, I don't want to say lines or things like, you know, or box myself, or, you know, like I'm reborn or anything like that.
It's a ongoing battle.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the reality about any type of whether it's alcoholism or using drugs, and even if it's addiction or not addiction, if it's recreational use, it's an ongoing battle. And literally every time you say no, you're just one step closer, and it makes things one level easier to say no again. Every time you give in, you lose the battle. Therefore, you make it easier to lose the battle again.
Yeah,
that's how I think about anything. It's like just discipline in general. The more you say no, the easier to bad things like drugs and alcohol, the easier it becomes to continue saying no. So, but I don't think anybody would sit here and blame you if you're saying, here, I've got my life on track, I've got this. If you fell off the wagon, it's not the end of the world, but it's about you actually making a conscious decision for yourself, for your family, for your kids, for your wife, for everyone around you, the people that sort of need you to show up for them. It's about making a conscious decision to know that you need to better your life. And I think you're already taking those steps clearly. So I'll say this as well. Nobody's perfect, mate. Nobody's perfect. There's one man who, in my view, was perfect. And
JC, man.
Yep, that's it. And, you know, and humans, you know, crucified him. So, you know, my point is everybody's going to, you know, have these points in their life where, you know, they feel like they're on top, and then, you know, they lose it all. And the thing that I've tried to, you know, sort of live my life is like, you know, never lose sight of what got you to where you are, but also understand what is really important, what will fade away. It doesn't matter. Like, my business is not hugely successful. It's moderately successful. Being a tech founder is not easy.
Yeah.
And it has its moments, right? It's like anything, but I don't think I'm ever immune to letting success get to my head. So I always consistently have to remind myself about what is actually important, and what it is that I want to be remembered for. And, you know, my kids mean the world to me, and the thought of, you know, losing sight of that is actually, you know, quite upsetting. So I can't imagine, you know, how you sort of felt through that. But of course there is, you know, the fact that you're still alive, you're still here, you have the rest of your life to actually, you know, make up for that and build a meaningful relationship with them, and turn things around, man. So, yeah. You said that you lost it all. Like, was there something specifically that happened that caused it to spiral, or was it just a buildup of, you know, carelessness, recklessness, overspending?
Yeah, all of the above.
Was there one moment where you thought, fuck, like, I've lost this completely now? Was there like because sometimes there's a like a trend downwards, and sometimes, you know, even with fashion brands, like something that's hot one season is not the next, and that can be the case, but sometimes there can be like a catalyst of like, oh, this happened, and everything after that seemed to spiral.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's still something I've got to. It's hard because I'm definitely. It's not something for me like I've, you know, boxed away or emotionally boxed it away and gone, oh, you know, I can't go there, or it's there. It was a series of things. Like, I think you've got to, like, now where I am now in life and in business now and in other businesses, and only in recent time, like 12 months ago, yeah, I've tasted defeat again, you know, and I got the sayings you hear, you know, it's how you get back up.
Yeah. It's never easy when you're going through that, right?
Nah, man, you never.
That's where all those questions of "Am I worthy?" come in. And
Mm,
that's the thing. Like, as a man, like I'll say this, like if there are women listening, like if you haven't told the main man in your life, whether it's your father, whether it's your boyfriend, whether it's your husband, whether it's even your kids, if you're a single mum and your son is the man of the house or whatever it might be, make sure you remind them frequently how deserving they actually are, because as men, there's these things that we battle with all the time. Like, am I actually worthy? Am I doing a good job? Am I a good father? Am I a good husband? It's a lot, So yeah, those things are totally normal. And when you're going through them, it's never easy. And everyone says, oh, you're still alive, you're still breathing, you still got your health. Like, it doesn't make it easier when people say those things. It is the reality, though.
yeah,
And they're just trying to make you feel better, but it doesn't remove that feeling of failure from you. And if anything, like, the people that learn to harness that and understand that, they always get better on the other side of it. But sometimes it can break you, it can break you.
Well, on that, and we talked about the catalyst. I don't know what the catalyst is with Christian Paul, the failure there. I'm like, don't even say this like, is he man enough? I'm human enough to admit it was at my own hand. I also think with a different way now, and to me, I'm comfortable in my skin when I say this. And some people maybe on the other side of the camera, when they hear stuff like this, they go, "Oh, mate, well, like, that's so weird," or people think uncomfortable with this. I was driven by my family, and I had purpose in my family. And I had purpose in going back to that guy that met the woman of my dreams and wanted to build this life. But I had no value. I was the guy that when I had it all, I was so caught up in what the next thing and the next thing. And, I would always try to come back to this, but it was at my own hand. In other words, whether it wasn't, say it's greed, and I never bounced back. That's the truth. When I went to that high mountain with Christian Paul, and I always looked back with regret, and it's only been really since October. And I'm saying this, not to Bible bash, but to be genuine and say who I am. When I heard a sermon and it was said, remove yourself from the center and place God there, give it all to him and place it. It set me free, man. It really set me free. Genuinely. I'm working on myself every day because, if I speak metaphorically, or if I try and give you a picture, it might even sound psychotic to say this, but I see the old me there that I left behind, and I would like to harvest some pieces there because I know there's some good there.
Oh, absolutely.
There's some good to come out of that guy. I don't want to be that hard on myself,
Yeah.
But I took that guy, and went into these other businesses with baggage. I went into F45, right? And when I blabbled and gone, and we've spent a lot of time, and to really sharpen it and get there, 5 locations over to Vegas, win the top award over there for district, beat like a studio that's had it for 5 years in a row. They've never been beaten. Boom. 2 years later, my other studio takes out the state award. It's only ever been won by Bondi Beach because obviously location size, whatever it might be, take out state. I go into City Cave, win these sales, this and that. But I carried this back. It all failed.
Yeah.
It all failed. And whether if this is just for me, and whether it's just selfish to say this, or whether some people maybe see it as even a weakness when I say this, it's fine, because I say this even just to be vulnerable, just to open up what's inside me. I never build it on the right foundation. I never build it on the foundation of the kingdom. I never woke up each day up until around October to better myself as a human being, as a father, right? And I still struggle with that every day. I wake up every morning now, and I ask my father, the father that once again, I'm not trying to paint a picture like the poor me picture, yeah? But I built a man that was Tim Caruana, that I thought had to handle things a certain way and had to do things a certain way, and that's what made a man. but that's what was my demise, because there's times to change gears. Yeah, there's things I brought to the table that put me on the highest level with everyone, but I never changed gears. I stayed in 6th gear. I found a 7th gear. I went to 8th gear. Sometimes that's too intense, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to pull things back. You know, it's not about getting that opportunity and jumping on the flight sporadically. It's about strategically planning out a trip that says you go here, you go there, you have time for rest. It's not about signing that contract right then and there. There's moments for that. There's things that you need, those big jumps.
Yeah.
But I hit the ceiling, and when I hit the ceiling, man, it was a long way to fall.
Yeah.
And when I hit the bottom, I hit rock bottom. You know, only in September last year, right? So I've been going to church probably for about a year now, but keep in mind October. So what's that? Roughly November, December.
9 months.
9 months. I really gave to my faith. Perfect submission.
Yeah.
Waking up each day, speaking to God as my Father, reading His book and guidance. You know, I said to a friend of mine only about a month ago, and maybe it sounds hypocritical. Maybe some people would hear this and say, shame on you to even say this. But I put it this, if you even didn't believe in God at all, but you read the Bible, mate, that's everything you need to know about how to live a good life.
Yeah.
And how to be a good person. Take God out of it.
A lot of wisdom in there, yeah.
Mate, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. And even if you don't believe, like, I don't know about you, I know you're a believer, right? But even for people that don't believe, I think we're toward 2025 for all of us, right?
Mm.
And we all know why it started at 0. It's the birth of our Savior, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't take that lightly. It can be a bit tough because I'm an all-in sort of guy. You know, I drive around with a number plate on my car that says God can. And I truly believe it in my heart. And I have the number plate on there, not as like a status, not as like, you know, maybe it is like a brand, you know, in a way. Like it's a part of my image now, or something that I want to hold to a certain standard. You know, it might seem crazy, but I don't want
No, it's a gentle reminder as well.
It's a big
To
reminder
yourself,
for me.
every time you get in your car, you look at it, number plate. It's the same thing. There's a small change that I made. Chris Bates, who's one of the top mortgage brokers, put it on LinkedIn, and he said, you know, that's my wallpaper at the moment.
Yeah.
But he said there's a setting on the iPhone where you can change your wallpaper so it rotates through your camera roll and stuff like that. And so I just changed it. And every single time I open my phone, it changes every hour. But when I open my phone and it's a new wallpaper, it's just a gentle reminder about why I do things. You know, like that's my wife. There was my son with a hat on. Before it was a photo of my son in the hospital. Like most of the time, they're amazing moments. And even the ones that are like a little bit upsetting when you look at them, you're just so happy that like you're no longer in that place. Yeah. So I do think that immersing yourself in, you know, your life's goals or your life missions, if it's making your life better, it's improving your family. It doesn't matter, you know, obviously I'm a Christian, but I have friends that are of every type of faith. And I think I would rather, if I had to pick, you know, a life partner or a friend or someone who's a non-believer altogether, or somebody who believes in any God, I think I would pick the person who believes in any God, because it's a way to keep yourself grounded and humble. And there's a level of humility that when you realize that you are nothing in the scheme of things, but you can also still make such an impact on other people's lives, that it's extremely powerful. It's extremely powerful. Like in the scheme of things, the Creator made this universe that's ever expanding, and like we can't even comprehend the size of it. It is a humbling experience when you actually sort of realize that you are not the center of the world. You know, that really it's God or it's a creator. Or, you know, if you're a non-believer, then, you know, you might say it's the Big Bang, but a lot of the best scientists will say, well, how did the Big Bang occur, etc. But yeah, I think it's a humbling experience. The more you put these things front and center, it's like no different to having a vision board, you know?
Yeah.
Put your goals in front of you, you know?
Which I do
having a number plate that reminds you of, you know, a better pathway forward. I think there's nothing wrong with that, mate.
Yeah. And I had, you know, I made mention before of when we talked about the Silver Star shirts, and I reconnected with a mate, and we'd done some pad sessions. He sent me only a screenshot. It would only be a week ago, and he said his mother. I wouldn't do this justice, but his mother was praying for a girl that's just been diagnosed with cancer, and as she come out of the corner, she come in front of a car, and the number plates were God can, and she sent the shot.
Oh wow!
To her son, and her son said, "Well, I know who drives that car," and he sent it to me. Last night, I took my son to speech therapy, and as I pulled up to the lights, a guy was giving me hand gestures to put my window down. I thought, oh, well, did I maybe do something wrong, or not too sure here. I put my window down, and he said, bro, I was just talking to a mate of mine yesterday, and I need to see that number plates, man. God bless you and your family. I said, God bless you too, So it's definitely a personal thing that me and my wife picked. We're living by faith for our family. It's having its challenges. I'm not going to be honest. I'm not going to be dishonest. Sorry, when I say it has its challenges, because sometimes when you do things, or maybe I have to say sometimes, because I have to be optimistic when I say this. Sometimes when it looks like you are bettering yourself and you are becoming a better version, sometimes that can highlight to people around you that you may be making them look bad. If I'm doing that any sort of justice, does that make sense?
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the same reason why people say to you when you were working 16-hour days, you're going to work yourself into the ground. Like, people say it to me as well. Like, you're
making them look shit.
You're going to get burnt out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But literally all you're doing is when you work hard, or when you do things to try and better yourself, doesn't matter what that is, right? And you being so open and so vulnerable, you're literally saying, I'm the least perfect human, in the room.
Without
and I'm
doubt.
willing to accept that. But I'm working towards being a better human. That's
every day.
That's what you're saying.
Every day. Every moment.
But what you're actually doing is you're just actually shining a mirror on themselves, and they can't bear the thought of themselves not fulfilling their own potential.
Yeah.
That's why you get that reaction. So literally it's like a, if you want to call it a paradox, it's like they're looking in the mirror every time you shine that mirror towards them. That's what happens. And you can't take that personally. A lot of people have deep-rooted insecurities for things that happened to them 20, 30 years ago. Everybody's got their own life story, just like you. I think the most important thing that I've learned as a Christian, or just, life experience, is that you've almost got to pity people when they you can't judge them. You've got to extend some empathy towards what they might be going through and why they might feel that way, and what inadequacies they feel they have. Definitely can't take any of that stuff personally, man. You just got to focus on yourself. At the end of the day, they might have their life moment where they need to turn their life around, or have things not going. So don't see that as a bad thing. It's just what happens is when you try and better yourself, what you're doing is you're actually casting a mirror back at that person who's seeing you make these changes, and all that does is make them really disappointed with themselves for being complacent, for not wanting to improve their life. That's all it is, man. As soon as you understand that, you stop worrying about what other people think, and it does make it uncomfortable, because then sometimes you've got family relationships and you've got friends, and sometimes the friendship circles are complicated, because you've got your mate who you've known for 20 plus years, but now your wives are mates and they've got problems, and it gets complicated, but you just got to try and focus on yourself, man. And that's it. So that's what I've learned.
That's really good advice. And, reflecting on what you said there, like, I couldn't agree more. And, when we're talking about the mirror, like, there's no mirror on me, and if there is any mirror around me, it's me looking myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And, I like the guy I see. I'm not going to lie. I've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe that mirror has got a black cloth over it. and I sometimes don't have that reflection. It's definitely because it's not a front. To be a good person or to be a great person or to do good things. It's not fronts, right?
Yeah.
But you need to have a consciousness, yeah.
Yeah.
And I never had that for a long time. And I built a person with disregard to my life when I used to punish it with alcohol and drugs. Disregard to people when I'd shut them down with words or shoot them down with words. The list goes on and on, to my family and stuff. Like, it's tough, man. It gets deep because, I see, like, I try to stay off social media. My wife probably would hear this and laugh a little bit because I do get a little bit of doom scrolling here and there, getting in the mix,
Yeah.
but I try to stay off it because I know there's no good that can come for it, and I'd rather spend my time elsewhere. But it is about me. Like, going back to those plates. Those plates is like, it's me, for me and my wife. For me, it's a big thing. Like, walk into the car, I see the plates, and I'm like, he can. I talk to him. I say, yep, you can. When I start my day, I ask him to put me to work. My mind needs to be busy, man. I need to be busy.
Yeah.
I've got a restless mind. I'm at peace. I'm definitely at peace with my faith, but I need to work, man. I need to go to work. So I ask him to come to me. I ask him that I know my tongue can be a two-bladed knife. But I only want to cut. I want to cut, and I want to cut smooth, but with only words good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want any of that negativity. I don't want any of that bad stuff.
I want to, before we wrap up, I want to
Yeah.
end on a good note. And you've obviously, since now you've got a successful roofing business,
Yep.
and you've got yourself on the right path. But I just want to, we'll wrap up by talking about what you do there, because
Yeah.
there might be some people listening that go, okay, I can connect you with this person or whatever.
Yeah, nice.
But you mentioned before, you said you lost everything. And I just want to remind you that there's no way you could possibly lose everything, because in all those businesses and in all the success that you had, you honed tools, right? You developed skills, you learned things, you built a great network, you built up a knowledge bank that, virtually you couldn't pay any university to teach you, right? It's like
without a doubt.
all the things you did, the
School
connections,
of
the
Hard
warehouse,
Knocks, right?
the assembly, all the stuff we spoke about, and the stuff that we didn't even get to.
Yeah.
So I think it's important always to frame that. It's like, yeah, you did, compared to what you had, it feels like you lost everything, but the reality is you're a better man for it, because now then anything that you approach moving forward, as long as you don't allow your life to get derailed again, you're in a position where you have all those skills, have all that knowledge, have all that experience to take it forward and build the next great business. You're an entrepreneur. Like, you went from fashion, watches and all the stuff you did at Groupon, to fitness and health and wellness with City Cave and all those kinds of things.
And now roofing.
Now roofing.
Yeah.
Like, you're as pure entrepreneur as you could probably find. So there's no question in my mind you could pick any industry and find a way to be successful. But maybe talk a little bit about the roofing business, just so if anybody is listening, or and they need the services, or if they know somebody that might benefit from a connection with you, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I run All Aussie Roofing. It's quite interesting because my business partner, when we were in the gyms together, he'd gone out and started the roofing business. When the gym started to wrap up, and once again, not to get too long-winded into the story, COVID, the key word there, coming out of the gyms, the dynamics changed. I mentioned it was F45. The market changed. So they've, once again, I don't want to speak ill of them. It was great timing for us and good timing when we had them. But there's other brands that have emerged and taken a lot of slices of the pie, even though it is a big pie, and it's obviously a growing pie, health and everything, and whether it's aesthetics or mental health or whatever it may be. But when the gyms come to a wrap and then the City Cave come to a wrap, I found myself at a crossroad, and I got into the roofing. It's only been it's only been really recent. Because I'm dabbling. When I say dabbling, I'm going for it too. But I understand it's a longer burning flame. It's going to take me a little bit of time. But real estate,
Yeah.
most people, oh, you love property, do you? And I'm like, I love people.
Yeah.
And real estate's people, yeah. So I feel like that's the longer term journey. I think it'll find me there. I'll do it with my wife. We're with MacArthur United with the real estate. We've just started out. It's only like 2-month, 3-month thing.
Oh,
We've already
wow,
got a couple of listings that are about to go live, which is good.
Amazing.
Faith First Real Estate is our Instagram
great,
page. So once again, for some people it might be a big red alarm. For a lot of people it might be a big green alarm, green flag.
Yeah.
And for some people they might not even care.
Yeah.
The truth is I just want to be real for once.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I'm building the new me, and you touched on it. All these lessons and that's where I go to, sounds so more, but go to that body and grab those pieces, because I want to take those good parts with me, and I can keep that, I can let go of. A better way of saying it is I can shed the baggage and change my behaviors. The roofing, I've come to go back into that. The roofing, I've come to really love it. So I'm very process driven. For someone that's not trained, but I am trained, right, in my own way. I never went to university, but I've got maybe the double, triple degree. I don't know what I've got, right? I've got the degrees that can't be written on paper. They can only be written up here. And I joked around about the 1 terabyte. Probably be more like from 1980. I'm probably talking gigs rather than terabytes. But, the roofing is, it's satisfying because it's been 12 months, right? And I went from a guy that never been on the roof, never been on a roof, to up there cutting sheets on the drill, like a tradesman, jack of no trade, master of roofing, so to speak. But a deep dive, I understand with those lessons you spoke about. And one thing I would say for anyone listening, maybe if that's, a little bit of a punchline, like you mentioned, we say stuff like anyone listening, is that if you've got that fire in you, and you can generate that focus and get an understanding and also a belief that anything is solvable. It's just working out the puzzle, and that's all it was. Like, roofing to me was just a puzzle. We mostly do, or when I say mostly, 100% of our business right now is new roofs. We work with only about 25 plus builders at the moment. We're probably on target to do over 250 houses this year, right? Which is a pretty big number, I think. That'll put us, I like to stay modest and say we're a small business. I work it on, I'm a clear-cut communicator. I pride myself on that. I work myself on 3 principles. I talk about quality. I talk about speed, but speed never having a priority over the quality. And I talk about communication. And when I talk about communication, I'm clearly an over-communicator, I say, but I own it. It's part of my DNA. It's who I am. I say, like, I partner with people. I partner with builders. And when problems happen, I bring the problem to the table with the best solution, I believe, but we make a decision together and we move on.
Accountability is important.
Yeah, 100%. And the accountability, that's a good word. And some people might look at that even as a weakness to go, when you sort of share, because accountability is a bit of a funny one, right? It could be very narrow-minded to say it's not shareable, but it is shareable in a partnership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has to be. Whether it's 50-50 or whether it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
We do roofs, man. And, what makes a roof and what doesn't make a roof is the non-leaking part. So that's the most important bit, Nice. And then from there, it's
very simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. And when they're that high up on the 2 stories, they all look pretty good. Because trust me, it's pretty sketchy up there. I've been up there a few times, It's a bit of a different feeling than looking out that window with Christian Paul and the private jet. You'll see me in some high vis with some raggedy clothes, but I'm happy, man. I'm really happy. I'm happy that it's still a process for me. I know we're wrapping up now, so I don't want to go too much on it. But
I heard a beautiful quote that I think is a great one to end on, and it spoke about being happy with the pursuit rather than the pursuit being happy with the pursuit. So meaning the journey, right?
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of people say, oh, the thing about being a founder is like, or starting a company is like, you know, the journey, and you're like, bullshit, just like give me the check at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The problem with your pursuit of happiness, which is the opposite. So be happy with the pursuit instead of pursuing happiness.
Yep.
If you just pursue happiness, that's why everyone's always looking for that one pill to make them lose weight instead of actually getting in the gym and fixing their nutrition and all that kind of stuff. You're way more likely to end up with sort of dopamine deficits because you're looking for that next one pill. And and as soon as people understand that the journey is another way to say it is the lion prefers the hunt than he enjoys the meal, right? That's
Yes.
like the process is actually what you need to learn to enjoy, because as soon as you do that, then you stop looking for the instant gratification and you understand that the best type of happiness that you can ever fulfill yourself with is actually those things that are never-ending pursuits. Where you're always going to try and want to. Are you ever going to say, I'm happy with the father that I am?
Definitely
Or the
not.
husband that I am?
No, definitely not.
Or the Christian that I am?
Definitely
You're always
not.
going to be pursuing to be better. And that's actually what makes you happy.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So I realize I kind of butchered it, but
No, you didn't butcher it. You hit the spot with me.
It sounds counterintuitive. You know, be happy with the pursuit instead of pursuing the happiness. But it is like really, when you understand and unpack that, a really important thing to keep in mind. So,
Yeah,
mate, thank you. That was quite a journey you took me on, and I'm sure anyone who listens to this is going to be blown away with that. A lot of stuff we still didn't cover that we sort of talked about offline, but maybe once let's do another episode, maybe in 6 or 12 months' time, and check in with you and see how you're going and fill us in on all the other stories. Because man, that was quite a journey. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and talking about all these things that are very personal to you. I think anybody listening to that will say that, you know, like nobody can ever think anything other than you are a man who is, you know, of integrity, because you're admitting that you're showing ownership of any mistakes that you made, but you're also, you know, showing that you're, you know, willing to better yourself. And anyone who listens to that is going to see truthfully a very strong, secure in his own self, a very strong man. So thank you for sharing, mate. It's probably a great time for a podcast like this where you're speaking about men's mental health and all the things that you've been through. So you're the man. I'm proud of you, bro. I'm really proud of you.
No, thank you, man. Thank you for your time.
No, all good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
mate.